Ethan Hale never thought his small ship would end up lost beyond every known star. He was a simple human engineer, not a soldier or explorer, but fate had its own path. During a rescue mission near Jupiter's orbit, his ship's engine burst with a strange blue light, and before he could react, a tear in space swallowed him whole. When the light faded, he found himself drifting among alien stars, surrounded by warships of a race he had never seen. They were tall, graceful beings with glowing eyes and silver skin that shimmered like moonlight. Their language sounded like music and thunder mixed together. He was pulled aboard one of their ships and taken into custody. The aliens were the Aleth, rulers of many star systems. They were proud and distant, and they didn't trust outsiders. Ethan tried to explain that he meant no harm, that his ship's jump drive had malfunctioned, but his words were strange to them. They locked him in a bright, cold room where the air smelled like iron and flowers. Days passed before someone came to question him. The guards called her Queen Serenia. Ethan had never seen anyone like her. She stood tall, her eyes glowing a soft violet light, her long white hair flowing behind her like silk. Her voice carried calm power. When she asked who he was, he said in a quiet voice, "I'm Ethan Hale. I'm human. From Earth." She tilted her head slightly. "Earth," she repeated as if tasting the sound. Then she asked, "Why did you enter our space?" Ethan told her everything. How he was repairing a rescue craft, how the jump drive malfunctioned, how he didn't even know where he was now. She listened without interrupting. Then she looked at him for a long moment and said softly, "You risked your life for others even when you were unprepared. Few among my kind would do the same." Before leaving, she ordered the guards to treat him kindly. It was the first act of mercy he had seen in weeks. Later that night, a deep alarm shook the alien flagship. Something in the main reactor had failed, and the energy levels were spiking dangerously. The Aleth engineers shouted in their own language, trying to stabilize the system, but nothing worked. Ethan could see the patterns on the control panels. They were advanced, but he recognized the same principles. He had repaired reactors all his life. He pushed past a guard and yelled, "Let me help!" The guard raised a weapon, but Queen Serenia's voice came through the comm system. "Let him try," she said. The guard hesitated, then stepped aside. Ethan ran into the reactor chamber, the heat stinging his face. He quickly found the problem. A coolant line had ruptured and the backup regulators were frozen in command loop. He grabbed a plasma tool, pulled off a panel, and began to work. The aliens watched, amazed, as the human used his bare hands and quick mind to reroute the power flow. Minutes later, the rising energy numbers began to fall. The reactor stabilized. The explosion never came. When the light stopped flashing, the alien stared in silence. Ethan dropped the tool and wiped his forehead. "You're safe now," he said softly. For a moment, even the machines seemed to hold their breath. The next morning, the ship docked at the capital world of Veralis. It was a shining planet of floating towers and glowing bridges that stretched across the clouds. Ethan was brought before the royal court, where hundreds of alien nobles stood in perfect lines. They wore armor that gleamed like liquid metal and cloaks that moved as if alive. The air was heavy with tension. The council demanded to know what was to be done with the human who had interfered with royal systems. Ethan stood quietly, surrounded by guards. He didn't understand their words, but he knew from their eyes that they wanted him gone, or worse. Then Queen Serenia entered. The crowd bowed deeply as she walked toward her throne. Her gaze swept over them, calm but commanding. When she spoke, her voice carried through the vast chamber like music made of light. "He saved this fleet," she said. "Without him, none of us would be here." One noble, his armor dark and sharp like glass, stepped forward. "He is an outsider," the man said. "A lesser being. Gratitude is one thing, but marriage of species is another. He does not belong in our world." Serenia's eyes narrowed slightly. "And yet it was this outsider who repaired the heart of our ship when you could not," she replied. The noble hesitated, anger flashing in his expression. Others murmured their agreement. The court began to fill with noise and argument, voices rising and echoing off the high crystal walls. Ethan stood there silently, not knowing what they were saying, but he could feel the rising storm. He wished he could disappear. Then Serenia rose from her throne. The noise stopped instantly. She descended the marble steps slowly, her eyes never leaving his face. When she reached him, she stopped only a breath away. He could see the faint light glowing under her skin, the quiet strength in her expression. Then, before the entire court, she lifted her hand and placed it gently over his heart. "This human," she said clearly, her voice firm and bright, "is not my prisoner. He is my chosen, my husband." The words fell into the air like thunder. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then the hall exploded into sound, shouts, disbelief, even fear. The guards raised their weapons. The nobles gasped. Ethan blinked, confused, unsure if he had heard right. "Wait, what?" he whispered, his voice lost in the roar. Serenia turned slightly toward the guards. "Stand down," she commanded. "He is under my protection." The guards lowered their weapons instantly. Then she looked back at Ethan and spoke softly so only he could hear. "Do not be afraid. You saved my people when no one else could. You are not leaving this world as a stranger." He stared at her, unable to speak. He had only wanted to help, but now the entire alien world was looking at him as if he had just stolen their queen. The nobles shouted in anger. "This is madness," one cried. "He is a primitive, a human." Another shouted, "He will bring ruin to our bloodline." Serenia turned to face them, her silver hair catching the light like threads of fire. "Then let ruin come if that is what honor requires," she said. "But I will not let a good heart be cast aside because of fear." Her words silenced them again. She turned back toward Ethan, her expression softer now. "You repaired more than a reactor," she said quietly. "You repaired hope." Ethan could not find words. He only nodded slightly, unsure what else to do. Outside the great hall, the alien city glittered with towers that reached into the sky. Ships drifted like quiet stars between them. Yet inside that chamber, the air was heavy with silence and disbelief. The nobles had never seen their queen choose anyone, not even among their own kind. At last, Serenia turned to the court and spoke once more. "From this day, this human stands beside me. Let no one raise a hand against him." No one dared argue. The queen of the Aelith Dominion had spoken, and her word was law. As the crowd bowed reluctantly, Ethan felt a strange mixture of fear and awe. He didn't know what this meant or how long it would last, but he saw something in her eyes, a deep, quiet trust. When the hall finally emptied, Serenia looked at him again and said softly, "You will have questions. So do I, but for now you are safe." He took a slow breath and nodded. "I didn't mean to cause all this," he said. Her lips curved into a small smile. "Sometimes destiny arrives without permission." As they walked out together, the great doors of the throne room closed behind them. Outside, the stars of Viralis burned brighter than ever, as if the universe itself was watching. Ethan didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but one thing was certain. The moment the alien queen called him husband, his life, and hers, had changed forever. "Would you like me to?" "No." The moment Queen Serenia declared Ethan her husband, the news spread across the galaxy like fire. Every screen, every communication wave carried the message. The alien queen of the Aelith Dominion had chosen a human. Some called it madness, some called it betrayal, and others whispered that it was a prophecy come true. But Ethan didn't understand any of that. All he saw was the storm it created around the woman who had risked everything for him. The palace halls, once filled with quiet respect, now echoed with argument. Ministers shouted in the council room, saying the queen had lost her mind. Generals demanded that she renounce her choice. Even her closest advisors avoided her gaze. But Serenia stood strong, her voice calm and unshaken. "He saved our lives," she said again and again. "And for that, he has my loyalty." Ethan felt lost in a world that wasn't his. The palace was like a living jewel, made of glass and light, floating above the clouds of Viralis. Yet he couldn't enjoy its beauty. Every step he took, eyes followed him. Servants whispered behind doors. Guards watched him carefully, unsure if they should salute or glare. One night he stood on a balcony looking down at the endless city below. The air was cool, filled with silver lights from ships passing by. He heard soft footsteps behind him and turned to see Serenia. She wore no crown that evening, only a simple robe that shimmered faintly in the moonlight. "You are quiet," she said. "I don't belong here," he replied honestly. "Your people don't want me, and I don't even know how to act in a place like this." She stepped beside him and looked out at the city. "Do you think I wanted a throne?" she asked softly. "When I was young, I wanted to explore the stars, not rule them. But fate decided otherwise. I learned that sometimes we don't choose the place. We only choose what kind of heart we bring to it. He looked at her, surprised. She smiled faintly. You brought a human heart, and that may be what we need most. Before he could answer, a loud chime broke the silence. A messenger ran into the balcony corridor, bowing deeply. My queen, the outer sectors have revolted. The High Council of Aelith calls your rule invalid. They are marching with fleets toward the capital. Ethan's chest tightened. They're attacking you? They are attacking us, she said quietly. They see my choice as weakness. They think they can take the throne while we stand divided. Within hours, the capital went into emergency command. The great sky above Viralis filled with defense ships. Ethan watched from the control room as massive holographic maps showed approaching fleets. He could see her face, still calm, still proud, but her eyes carried weight. The generals urged her to flee to a safe world, but she refused. A ruler does not abandon her people, she said. Then she turned to Ethan. You once repaired what we could not. Can you do it again? He blinked. I can try, but I don't even understand your ships completely. Your way of thinking is different, she said. That difference may save us. Ethan was given access to the central defense systems, machines that controlled the energy barriers around the planet. The alien engineers worked around him, watching with disbelief as he drew strange diagrams on glowing panels. He used logic that they had never seen, based on Earth's old engineering patterns. While they prepared, the palace trembled. The enemy fleets entered orbit, their weapons ready. Lightning-like blasts tore through the sky. One hit close enough to shake the entire tower. Guards rushed to protect the queen, but she waved them back. Hold the line, she said firmly. Ethan worked through the chaos, sweat dripping from his face. If I can overload their energy field by reversing the polarity of the planetary shield, it might disable their engines without destroying them, he said. The aliens looked at him as if he were mad. That's impossible, one engineer said. Ethan looked at Serenia. On Earth, we try impossible things every day. That's how we survive. She nodded without hesitation. Do it. They followed his lead. He rerouted the flow of energy, connecting circuits that had never been connected before. The room filled with rising light. Warnings flashed across every screen. 10 seconds until overload, a voice called. The ground trembled as the massive wave of energy spread outward. Outside, enemy ships suddenly lost power. One by one, their engines went dark, their weapons silent. The fleet hung frozen above the planet like statues. Cheers erupted in the control room. Ethan sank to his knees, exhausted but alive. Serenia walked forward and offered her hand. You saved us again, she said quietly. The next day, the High Council broadcasted a message across the Dominion. They could no longer deny her strength. Even the strongest among them bowed to her command. The rebellion fell apart. That night, Serenia called a gathering in the great square of the capital. Thousands of her people stood beneath the shining towers as she appeared on the balcony with Ethan by her side. The city lights turned golden, lighting up their faces. She raised her voice so everyone could hear. You feared what you did not understand, she said. You called him primitive, yet he used no weapon, no magic, only his courage and his mind. He saved our world when no one else could. From this day, let all races know. Humanity is not a shadow to be feared, but a light to be respected. The crowd was silent at first. Then slowly, applause spread like a wave. The sound grew louder until it filled the entire sky. Ethan stood beside her, still unsure how he deserved any of it. He turned to her quietly. I just did what anyone would do. No, she said softly. Many could, but few would. When the cheering finally faded, Serenia led him back inside the palace. They walked through long corridors filled with starlight. For the first time since arriving, Ethan didn't feel like an outsider. As they reached the throne room, he looked around the hall that had once been filled with anger and doubt. Now it was quiet, peaceful. He turned to Serenia. Do you think your people will ever accept me? They already have, she said gently. Not because I ordered it, but because you earned it. Ethan smiled faintly. I never thought I'd end up married to an alien queen, he said half-jokingly. Her eyes softened. And I never thought a human would teach my empire the meaning of courage. The stars outside shimmered through the glass ceiling like scattered jewels. Serenia stepped closer, her voice a whisper. When I first saw you, I saw fear and hope in your eyes. You reminded me what leadership truly means, not command, but compassion. He looked at her quietly. And you reminded me that kindness can change worlds. They stood together as the dawn rose over the shining towers of Viralis. The city that had once doubted them now awakened in peace. Far across the galaxy, stories would soon spread about the human who repaired an alien reactor, who stopped a war, and who stood beside a queen not because of power, but because of heart. For Ethan, it was not about being a hero or a legend. It was about a promise, the promise that even in a universe filled with cold stars, a single act of kindness could light them all. And as Queen Serenia looked at him under the first light of morning, she said the words that would be remembered for centuries. He is not only my husband, he is the proof that humanity belongs among the stars.